Hello everybody, it's Jim Parsons, your writing mentor from Australia. This is the free YouTube writing course series called Write That Novel Now, and we're up to lesson 29, one to go, lesson 29, and today I'm going to talk about developing your individual writing style. But because we're so close to the end of the course, I think it's time for a word from our sponsors. Oh, that's me. Look, I want to say to you, if you feel that these lessons have been very useful and you would like to have me be your personal writing mentor, just contact me. A lot cheaper than you think to have me as your personal writing mentor. And in fact, I'll give you those figures so you don't think, oh yeah, I bet it is. First of all, you need to have a structural mentoring. I insist on this. Before I start working chapter by chapter, I need to assure myself that overall your novel's going to work, that I'm not going to get to chapter 35 and think, this doesn't have a point going anywhere. No? There was never an inciting incident. So I start out with a structural mentoring package that consists of 3 questionnaires. You answer the questionnaires so that I get the sort of answers I need, and I will comment on them. And then, after that, we have an email dialogue. It goes backwards and forwards until we both feel we've squeezed as much as we can out of each of those. That's several weeks' work for me. What does it cost you? Structural mentoring package, 99 Australian dollars. See how expensive my ad material is. 99 Australian dollars. If you're not an Aussie, this is a bonus, because in US dollars, you're paying about, at present rate, 72 US dollars for that. If you're in Great Britain, you're looking at about 55 Great British pounds. Okay. Tell you what. Deal. Mention the fact that you've been watching my videos, and I will give you that package, 90 Australian dollars. So that's lopping another 10%, 90 Australian dollars. Okay, finish the structural mentoring package. Do you have to go on any further than that? No. If you're satisfied with the information I've given you, or even if you're dissatisfied, you can stop right there. Most people, of course, want to see what I have to say about their chapter writing. And so you will then start to send me chapter by chapter, chapter 1, 2, 3, 4. And I will go through that with you. I will make comments in the margin of where I think you need to improve what you're doing. Indeed, how you can improve it. I sometimes even give illustrations of what I mean. So you'll get the best possible professional advice. And I'm tough. I'm honest. I'm blunt. I will tell you things your mother or your girlfriend or your husband or wife or your sister won't tell you. They'll pat you on the head and tell you it's lovely. I will tell you where it needs to be improved and how to improve it. Now that's what you need, right? Okay, what does chapter by chapter cost? It will cost you 7 cents per word. Now that probably doesn't make a lot of sense to you, pardon the pun, but that is $7 per 1,000 words. So if you write a 2,000 word chapter, if you write a 2,000 word chapter, that's going to cost you 14 Australian dollars. If you write a 4,000 word chapter, that's going to cost you 28 Australian dollars. Remember, that's quite significantly less in US dollars or Great British. Okay, folks, if you like the sound of this mentoring, here's my email address. Contact me. There's no obligation. You can talk about it, be completely satisfied before you engage me. Here's that email address. Okay, ad is over. You can come back now. Come on back. I'm going to now tell you about how to create your own individual writing style, as promised. Esoteric knowledge. This is it, folks. You're listening? Here's what you do. You write 6 complete novels, shove them aside either on the hard drive or in a bottom drawer. And when you get to the 7th, and maybe that's the one that gets published, by then you have your own personal writing style. That's how it's done. Now, do you think I'm just teasing? Do you think that I'm being facetious? I'm not. Because basically, there is no way someone else can give you what belongs to you. It's your individual style. I can't teach it to you any more than someone else could have given me my individual style. Right? And my style emerges. I can see it's a very straightforward narrative without any lyrical passages. And I use dialogue that's, I hope, sounds very authentic. And also, I have a very cynical narration, usually, where I poke fun even at my favourite characters. Right? So that's my style. But what's yours? You have to develop it. And the only way you can do it, my friends, is to write and write and write. Now, I'm not leaving it back. No, I'm going to give you a PowerPoint presentation where I will talk about some things you can look for to improve your writing style, some things to avoid. But basically, it's entirely up to you. Okay, let's talk about achieving your individual writing style. Well, in fact, I'm just going to talk about getting writing in general, finishing a novel, because as you do that, you will be well on the way to achieving your individual style anyway. So the first point I made at the start of this lesson was you can only achieve this by writing, writing and writing and writing. I hope you're enjoying these lessons, but they're only theory. You have to put it into practice. Get in there and write. If you were looking to be a great tennis star, you could have a wall of books about how to play spectacular tennis. You could watch DVDs and YouTube videos till midnight every night. But until you pick that racket up and make a few swipes at a ball and hit quite a lot into the net and a few out over the court altogether, you're never going to learn to play tennis. It's a practical skill, and writing is a practical too. So you've got to be prepared to write, and a lot of it. You also have to accept that what you write is not going to be instantly wonderful. It's not going to be good. Even when you're an experienced author, it won't be good. You know, I give you some inspiration, if such it can be called, from Ernest Hemingway, renowned American author, Ernest Hemingway. Now, he wrote to his friend F. Scott Fitzgerald, and this is what he said, word for word: I write 1 page of masterpiece to 91 pages of shit. His words. He went on to say, the shit I tried in the wastebasket. Okay, this is one of America's greatest novelists, having trouble writing. So don't expect it to be easy for you either. There's a few things to take away from this. Notice one thing he said was, I try to put it in the wastebasket. That implies that he can never be absolutely sure that what he's retaining isn't still crap. That's often the role of critics, or someone like me who can mentor the writer and say, well, yes, you know, you're overly fond of this, my friend. Not so good writing. So accept that you cannot improve without making mistakes. The other thing I'd like you to think about from that Hemingway quote, even if you treat that as a complete exaggeration, you know, 91 pages to 1, even if you said 20 pages to 1 or 3 pages to 1, you can see this person rumpling up their pages and chucking them in the bin. This is something you can't do. It's not productive. If you're going to sit there write a line, stare at it for an hour, and then madly scribble through it or raise it or put your fist through the screen of your computer, it's not going to get you anywhere. Right? You have to be prepared to just go on writing. I said at the start of this whole course, there's only one reason you should be writing, and that is for the love of it, because you're compelled to do it. If you're writing because you think, yeah, if I can write well, I can make a lot of money, get over it. It's not what it's about. And you're never going to succeed because you will not have the perseverance. You will just notice that you're writing badly and give up. Don't give up. Write your first draft. Treat it as what it is, a first draft. That means you're trying to get these wonderful ideas that are buzzing around in your head. You're trying to get them down, I'll say on paper. Don't worry if it looks awful on the page. That doesn't matter. Ideas you're getting down there. Later on, you can come back and do something about that. I have a little trick that I employ. If I find myself sitting and waiting for a word, I know there's this word I want, and it won't come to mind, I type 4 X's in the sentence. Do you know why? Because later I can do a search for all the 4 X's in a row and Word will pull up at every one of those spots. And you can guarantee that a month later or a year later, the word will be there in my head. I won't have to strive for it anymore. It's that mental block at the time. And rather than sit there and fume, push on. Now that technique works not only for individual words, but also for whole blocks. So you're writing along nicely and you're really enjoying your story and you've written a couple of them. That's great. And then you think, what I need to do now is write some backstory where, Bill robs a bank with his father when he's 16. But you don't know how to go about that. You don't have the skills at the time. You're not sure how you should push that. Is it a memory? Is it a whole new chapter where you jump to there? You don't know what to do with it. So here is what you do. You write in italics, in red, whatever. At this point, I want to write some backstory where Bill robs a bank with his father. You leave it to the gods and you push on. You write the rest of the story that you do know how to write, that you're capable of writing. And when you come back to this story, it could be months later, it might be years later, you will have acquired more skill and you will very likely be able to write that scene in a way that pleases you. So don't feel that you have to sit and stare at a blank page and fume. It is not productive. Just push on and write what you can. Now, I keep talking about putting these drafts in the bottom drawer or in a back corner of the hard drive, so to speak, because you can come back to them years later. I find when I'm in the middle of a story, particularly if I'm getting bogged down, I can guarantee I'll think of something else I want to write. Nothing wrong with that. You are not obliged to push on with idea number 1. Put it aside. Let it incubate. Let the ideas incubate and leap in on your new one. Write a few chapters of your new one. And when that pales, put it aside. Carefully label so you know what to do. If you're ready to go back to novel 1, great. If you're not, you've got 2 half-started novels there. Start a third. Right? Now, of course, I realise this can be dangerous. There's a lot of people out there with 3 or 4 novels that only got to chapter 2. But if you do it deliberately, if it is a strategy to break writing blocks, move on, to give you time to give the subconscious time. Most of your writing is not done with the conscious brain. It's done with the subconscious. So give the poor old subconscious some room to move. So that's what I recommend that you do. Be like Hemingway, just acknowledge that some of what you're writing is crap. That's fine. Later, you'll have the skills to rectify this. And over the months, over the years, without you even thinking about it, bingo, you've got a writing style that's distinctly yours. The second thing I wanted to tell you is you can't graft your own style onto someone else's writing. By all means, read widely. That's important. Read widely, especially in the genre that you're most interested in. But don't try and write like someone else. By all means, analyse the style of writers you admire. Try and figure out how they get the effects that they do, but don't slavishly copy. Now, I talked about grafting. That's a horticultural analogy. Here's another one. You can't put your writing on hormones or force feed it. Right? Too much fertilizer, not good for it. If you force feed a plant, it grows lank and stringy and weak. And so will your writing if you try to dress it up. So many new writers think that just to sound writerly, and for many people that means using big words, or worse, using lyrical passages, so that they think they're writing something closer to poetry than prose. And you know what? It fails miserably. I can pick new writers who are trying to sound writerly by dressing their writing up. Honestly, they're like little kids in mummy's high heel shoes with lipstick smeared all over their face. Right? It's not a good look, and it's not a good look on the page. Don't try for excessive prose. You'll end up writing what's known as purple prose, where you have really exaggerated writing, exaggerated phraseology, and exaggerated lyrical passages. The other trap that novice writers fall into is believing that their vocabulary is too small. They're a writer. They're supposed to know words. I know words, right? Yeah. And one of the big troubles is that they either confuse their reader with intricate passages that mean very little. They pull their reader out of the story to try and decipher what this stupid sentence means, or worse still, they use the wrong word. So many times when I'm editing, when I'm mentoring, I have to say, sorry, but this isn't what that word means. You've used the wrong word. And I explain the word they probably meant. So this is a failing. People trying to stretch the vocabulary beyond the capability. Fine. If you know the word and you're certain of its meaning, use it. But don't otherwise. And worse still, don't grab for the thesaurus, because, yes, the thesaurus will give you a dozen different synonyms for a particular word. If you look down the list, oh, that one will do me. These synonyms have nuances of meaning. They don't all just mean the same as the word you looked up. There are nuances of meaning. Get the nuance wrong, and your writing's awful. Just be satisfied with what you know. Most conversations, most books don't need a vast vocabulary. Use the words you use in everyday speech. The same words you know that your reader uses. So don't force feed your writing. And lastly, I'm stuck on this horticultural analogy, aren't I? The more you stare at it, the slower your writing will be to flower. In other words, just write, put it aside, hope for the best. Over time, you will notice an improvement. But don't sort of look at every page and think, this is pretty awful, I need to make it better. Well, goodness me, I've talked a lot about what you mustn't do and what you shouldn't do. And let's look at some of the positive things that you can do, A, to improve your writing, and in doing so, to develop your own natural personal writing style. Pursuing this horticultural analogy again, you have to prepare the ground for the style to emerge. You've got to have the soil looking pretty good for your style to emerge. And what's best for it to emerge from? Nothing else but simple, unadorned prose. I mentioned this a few minutes ago. Don't try to write elaborate prose, beautiful words, beautiful phrases. You can almost guarantee the minute you've got a passage you think sounds wonderful, you've probably overwritten it. Okay. Concentrate first on achieving clarity. Your reader needs to be able to understand what you're on about. Needs to be able to understand what your characters are saying and thinking. You need to pin down the normal conventions of writing so that you don't startle your readers with something that doesn't fit their idea of what a novel is. So in seeking that clarity, try to avoid ambiguity. Right? So there's so many examples that I could give you from my mentoring. I won't, because that would be a breach of trust. There are so many examples of ambiguity, the way people write, of unclear sentences, of sentences that are mixed up. Get some books on good, clear writing and follow them. Try to find the flaws in your own writing. Look to remove repetitious words and phrases. It's something I spot in most people's work, that they might use the word woods and then a little bit in the next sentence, woods again. They don't need to repeat it. So many different examples like that. Be aware if you tend to start sentences, 3 or 4 sentences in a row that said, he did, he walked, he jumped, right? You get this pattern. I dealt with this in detail in the lessons, so I'm just currently trying to say to you, these are the things to look for. Go back through some of lessons where I dealt with these things. So that's what you need to do. Write your heart out, get the words down there, put it away, let it incubate. And when you have a sense that you're a better writer, pull it back out and examine it page by page. Look for these issues. Look to see whether you've dressed up your prose more than you should have. Look to see if the lines are clear, whether there are any ambiguities you need to remove. How do you start sentences? How much repetition is there? Are there words you're overusing? Great way to find this out. If you suspect there's a word that you're overusing, put it into Word and ask it to find that word. And you can go through stopping at each one and seeing whether you can justify it being there or whether you could change it or remove it altogether. There's some of the things you can do to improve your writing. And as for that writing style, individual style, you just have to wait for it. I'm sorry, there's nothing else I can do. Well, that's lesson 29 done and dusted. If you've been one of my regular viewers, come back next week for the grand finale, lesson 30, the end of the course. If this is actually the first time you've dropped in, just remember there are 28 you haven't seen. Go back, locate lesson 1 and start there. It's a great little course to help you write your novel. Thank you very much. Bye. Keep safe. See you next week.